I'm Don Callaway, the president of the Callaway Family Association. I live in Nashville, Tennessee. Been here for the past 24 years with my wife, Diana. We have 4 children, 4 grandchildren, and they live nearby here as well. We've lived in several places across the country. I was born in Lancaster, California. I was raised in a little town in northern Utah called Brigham City. We started our family in Brigham City, Utah, and then moved them to Bloomington, Indiana for a few years, on to Austin, Texas, and finally landed in Nashville, Tennessee in 1998. My wife is an avid family history researcher and genealogist. In 2000, she was researching my Callaway line, and she stumbled on the Callaway Family Association. We joined and plugged into the CFA to help with our Callaway research, and ultimately discovered I was a descendant from the Joseph line out of Virginia. Over the past 23 years in the CFA, we've been privileged to build special connections with many new Callaways from many different lines. One Callaway that really influenced me was Russ Callaway and his wife, Heidi. Russ was past president of the CFA, CFA journal editor, CFA technologist, and attended every CFA annual meeting since the organization was founded in 1975 until his passing in 2021. I'm so blessed to have met this cousin from the Joseph line because of our common interest and connection in the CFA. Ultimately, we joined the CFA to meet other Callaways, build relationships and personal connections, and see if together we could make that overseas connection between the various U.S. Callaway lines. If you've stumbled upon this podcast, it's probably because you made a web search looking for a genealogical or family history information concerning the Callaway family surname. You're also probably wondering, what is the Callaway Family Association, or CFA? Well, the CFA was formed in 1975 by a few Callaway descendants that shared an interest in genealogy, and ultimately included 500 charter members. All spellings are equally recognized. We don't care whether you spell it with a C or a K, have 1 L or 2 L, use A's, E's, or O's, or however you might spell it. Callaway with all A's was the name chosen for the organization because it appeared to be the most widely used. More than 2,800 people from 47 states and 6 foreign countries have become members since the CFA was formed. The purpose of the CFA is to collect and share genealogical information on the various spellings of the Callaway family lines. This information may be family memoirs or stories, census data, photographs, English records research, DNA research, or any other records. Membership's open to anyone. We don't care if you're a Callaway descendant. If you've got an interest in the Callaways and being part of furthering the objectives of the organization, we'd be happy to have you.
Good job, Don. Allow me to introduce myself. I'm Tarone Claybrook. I'm vice president of the CFA. I was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, although I've lived most of my life in the beach community of West Los Angeles. I currently reside in the Northeast Ohio with my wife, Danetta. We have 4 kids, 5 grandkids that live in Ohio and California. We've also had the blessing of living in San Diego and Jacksonville, Florida. I graduated from California State University Northridge and University of Southern California, and even attended Fuller Theological Seminary at UCLA. Right about now, you might be thinking about the importance of becoming involved as a CFA member. There's a lot of answers to that question, and they're all good. But the best way for me to answer that question to share with you is part of my story as the person who influenced me. That was my grandmother, Ada Byron Callaway Claybrook. She was born and raised in Good, Bedford County, Virginia. She told us slave stories about our English ancestry back to the 1700s. And then toward our great-grandfather, John Callaway, and slave Sarah Callaway, both of Bedford, Virginia. As I got older, I just needed to know more about my family and the descendants from what I learned as a little kid, just sitting around hearing grandma's stories. Well, I found out that it was only a few stones throws away from President Thomas Jefferson's home, where a lot of my family grew up. When I came into contact with CFA, I was just smitten, and I wanted more information about this genealogical family and information. And it was an amazing joy to learn about my family history and the wonderful family that I didn't even know. But what does membership provide? A full CFA membership will allow us access to all the CFA genealogical data, including some of the following information I'm about to share with you. It's amazing. The CFA Journal is produced yearly. The journal provides officers' reports, annual meeting minutes, editorials, Callaway family history, genealogical articles, technological advances, research findings, obituaries, and general member information. You can tell I'm excited. There's also the CFA newsletter. It's published quarterly. The newsletter delivered via mail or email. It provides information on upcoming events, genealogical articles, and family stories. Then we have the CFA website. That's located at www.callawayfamily.info. The site is open to members and non-members. Non-members can learn about the CFA and find information about becoming a member. Members have full access to the private portion of the website containing digital copies of all CFA journals and newsletters, as well as scanned documents from our English records, research, DNA project, genealogical records, census data, and more. And then there's the Callaway Y-DNA Surname Project. This is an open project, meaning anyone with a Callaway connection can join. The product's main focus is on Y-DNA, the male line, testing to the augment of the paper document that has been amassed by the organization for decades. Individuals who descend into a direct female line from the Callaways are also welcome to join and are grouped in with the mitochondrial DNA section. There's a lot for you, folks.
Thanks, Tyrone. That was great. And so much information. I really appreciate it. I'm sure that people will find it very interesting and helpful. My name is Nancie Callaway Rineer, and I'm the recording secretary of the CFA. I've lived my whole life in Southern California, and I raised 4 children there. I now have 13 grandchildren, and I'm so fortunate that they all live close by. I discovered the CFA in 2004 doing research. I had lost my dad 10 years before, and I was just spending some time going through old documents and thinking about him. And I came across a document that my grandmother had written. And it actually had my line back 5 generations. And I just wanted to find out more. And as I was doing that, I discovered the CFA. And I was so pleased, and I inquired about it. And I joined recently after that. I attended my first meeting in 2016 in Virginia. And I was absolutely hooked. I thought I was going to go there and find out everything just about my line, but what I found out was so much more. I met so many people that were also interested in ancestry, and we all had a connection to Callaway line, and we lovingly call each other cousin. One of the best ways to get started is to become a member of the CFA. So I'm going to give you a little bit of ideas how to do that. It's really easy, and what you gain by that. First of all, go to the website, www.callawayfamily.info. And on there, you're going to find how to join. You can fill out the form. You can mail that through the mail, or you can just send that electronically. You can pay for that by a credit card or a check. And there's a couple of membership levels. The first one is an active membership, and this provides you with full rights, including voting privileges, and you obtain your CFA journal every year. Well, that will come in the mail, and you get access to all data on the website, and that will cost $35 a month. A joint membership is if you would like your spouse to join also, that then would be $45 a month. And a supporting membership has all the privileges that we listed, but you will receive 2 CFA journals unless one is requested, and the cost of that is $55. A life membership is available to an individual, and it's a one-time payment. And a life membership receives full rights as an active member. The cost is $525, and again, that is just a one-time payment. Junior membership we offer to children through the age of 17 is $5. And the other thing that we ask is if you are an international member, to include an additional payment of $10 to cover the postage of the CFA journal. One of the things I wanted to share is it has just been a joy for me to be part of the CFA, and traveling to the yearly meetings. I have seen amazing parts of the country that I probably would have never seen before. And again, I get to share that and do that with my family. And it has just been a blessing to my life.
Thank you, Nancie. That was some great information. If you have any questions, check out that website. We certainly help you out. Drop us an email as well. Well, our goal here at the CFA is to create a virtual CFA library through scanning and digitizing our genealogical records. However, we recognize the value of meeting as a group on an annual basis to allow members, as Nancie and Tarone talked about, to interact with the CFA board and to create lifetime connections to other Callaway family members, cousins, and people interested in Callaway family history. These meetings usually occur in October at sites that have a Callaway connection. Well, there you have it. That's the Callaway Family Association in a nutshell. The bottom line is that the CFA needs you. Right now, we have 2 Callaway lines that go back to the 1600s. Joseph from Virginia and Peter from Maryland. You or an ancestor relative might be the missing link someone needs to extend their family tree or make a connection on an unknown tree. Along the way, you may just fill in a blank or two of your own. Join today, be a part of our fellowship and the fun of sharing. So we're proud of our family name and heritage, and we want to transfer this pride to generations to come as accurately as we possibly can. We plan to have more of these podcasts to provide a more in-depth look at the CFA and what it provides. Our goal is to produce a podcast every 2 to 3 weeks leading up to our 50th anniversary meeting in 2025 in Nashville, Tennessee. These podcasts will include fundamentals of genealogy, findings from our English research project, presentations on our Y-DNA project, family history, historic sites associated with the Callaway name, and a variety of other topics. So stay tuned. There's more to come.
So Don, what was the one thing that you can point back to that really got you started in wanting to look into your ancestry, your Callaway heritage?
Oh, that's easy. The one thing was my wife, Diana. She's the family history researcher and all. She was very interested. And of course, she pulled me in. My early job in that was to go with her to visit cemeteries. We'd divide up the cemetery and look at grave markers. To go to courthouses and help her research through records. She'd give me information. Hey, we're looking for these particular Callaways, and here's some of the descendants. If you find any land deeds or wills or anything that have these names in it, let me know. Grab them. We'll get copies of those. So I was the apprentice. She was the researcher, or is kind of where we started with things. But I think the best way, at least, to get started is to talk to your family. Diana, we kiddingly say on both my side and her side of the family, everybody actually calls her the family historian. And they do, whether they send a Christmas card or whatever. She's certainly got that reputation as the one person there in the family that gathers all this information. If I could pan the camera on, I'd show you the room I'm sitting in right now is her room where she keeps all of her genealogy information. And all the binders you see behind me are all the different lines, both the Callaway lines and her family lines and my mom's family lines that she's done the research on. She loves it. I enjoy going with her and learning new things about our family history. And there's always a few little fun nuggets. I always call them the black sheeps in the family. Those stories that nobody knows because nobody wanted to tell them, but it's fun when you can find those yourself. So that's how I got started. That's the role that I have in it, and I help her through that. Tarone, how about you? What was your first step down your path?
Well, it was a bunch of us as young kids sitting around listening to grandma's story. What was amazing is the generation above me, my dad, and my uncles and aunts, they really didn't take it to heart, because what grandma had to say seemed a little out there. She was naming names. She was saying Lord Baltimore this, King George the Sixth. She was naming things that were specifically in England. She discussed about how the people in England came to the United States. She identified them as hellions. Now, she was using language that she grew up in down in Bedford County, Virginia. So it was just us as little kids sitting around listening to grandma's stories, and we were fascinated by it. And then one year, I think I probably was about 12. I was born in Pittsburgh, but we had relocated to Los Angeles. And then I was coming back to Pittsburgh to visit. So I had a cassette player. And I remember I would just push it and grandma would tell stories. But even when that thing ran out, grandma was still telling stories. We even had an old picture that was up on grandma's piano. So one year when I was a little bit older, in my 20s, we saw this picture up on the piano, and I'm trying to catch up on the younger kids that were here. So, and I see this big yellow picture in the back, and I'm like, who is this? And she says, these are my parents. I'm like, oh my Lord, I didn't even know they had cameras then. So I look at these pictures and I'm like, now I know what her parents look like.
Yeah.
Now, what's amazing is my grandmother was born in 1892. So her parents obviously were older than that.
Right.
Well, I kept looking. There was another faded picture in the back. And I said, Grandma, who is this? And she goes, that's my grandfather. Oh, you got a picture of your grandfather? You gotta be kidding me. And so it just got more and more exciting. And it was just, this is the guy you told us about? And the twist to my story is John Callaway was a slave master and had impregnated a slave, Sarah. And I am the descendant of that line, but still a part of the Joseph line, the same as you, Don.
You are a real cousin. You're a real cousin. Nancie, how about you? What got you started on this venture?
Well, it was actually it was the 10th anniversary, the day that my dad had passed away. And I was just kind of spending the day thinking about him. And I started looking through old pictures and just a box of things that I had. So it was kind of a sad day for me. And just kind of reflecting on, having lost him and, just kind of living that through. And all of a sudden in the box, I came across a handwritten letter from my grandmother, which was a lineage. I later can tell you that it was a 5-generational chart. She didn't know that, but that's what she had put together. And so I went ahead and got on Ancestry and started putting that information in. And in doing kind of that, I came across somebody who had posted something from the CFA. So I jumped out of Ancestry and went to the CFA. And so I will always remember the first day that I found the CFA and what was available to me. So it was just kind of my beginning journey. It always makes me feel close to my dad. I don't know why, my family name line kind of is something I spend more time on, and it kind of means a little bit more to me, maybe because my dad's been gone for a long time. And so I feel like I bring him back in. But then again, like we talked about, the benefit of joining, and again, I'm a Joseph also, so we definitely are all related. And I see my dad in some of the people that are there. And so that's like a little added bonus for me that I get out of it. But yeah, it was just kind of reflecting on my dad that brought me to everything. So it's always been very special to me.
Yeah, that's pretty neat.
Yeah.
What was one of the most unique things during this journey of finding out about who you are and looking and trying to figure it out?
Well, I came to the CFA because I hit a block wall. I'll have to say I kind of came hoping someone would help me fill that in. And I've only gone back one line since then, but my brother has done his DNA and we're definitely Joseph. So I think that for me, I just am still hopeful that I'm going to figure out that other connection, even though in sitting here with the two of you, I know that it is the same as yours. You know, we meet each other back there, but I don't have all my line like you do. But I think more than anything, it's just that everybody that I see at the CFA, I feel like your family, and I need to see you every year. It's like a little reunion that we have, and we enjoy each other. So that has just been, you know, like a bonus that I never thought. And also being from California, and we do kind of meet in the middle of the country to the East Coast, I'm seeing places that I might normally have, you know, not thought to go and visit.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, good point. I think it's a good point you bring up. Diane and I, of course, we were in the CFA and looking at some of the information they had, the records they had, and never really thought seriously about going to an annual meeting until, as it works out, they actually held their meeting. I think it was in 2003 or somewhere around there in Nashville. And so Diana says, well, they're going to be here. We might as well go. And I think we've missed maybe 1 or 2 years since then because we had some family commitment, but we've been going every year since because we very quickly made connections. You can't come to an annual meeting without making a connection and feeling immediately that you're part of this family, and they're welcoming and they're giving out hugs and sharing smiles and making like they've known you for years. And so we look like you, Nancie. I look forward to it every year. It's kind of connecting up with family again and renewing that relationship again. I look forward to it every year.
Yes, it's been very beautiful. I had a little bit of advantage and a disadvantage because a lot of the information I got was basically from oral slave history.
Right.
But to then connect with the CFA, to get involved and to see it confirmed through DNA. And it took a little bit more work because I'm through a maternal line. So it's not as easy to find that as you can through the paternal line.
Right.
But a gentleman in my family who I didn't even know, who also lived in Ohio, stepped up, took the test to confirm the connection to the current CFA members. Totally amazing. Did not expect that. The other part is I took a vacation down in Bedford, Virginia, just going through old files and old information in the Bedford Museum right there in downtown Bedford.
Right.
So I had some people trying to help me, but I would just go page by page when they really weren't that organized. This is back in 2006. And I would just ask questions, and I started seeing names in these files that my grandmother had mentioned and told us when we were little kids. So I knew there was a connection, but I could not confirm it until a second trip down to Bedford, and somebody recommended looking at some records. For example, so coming from the slave line, they stated that, well, perhaps since slaves were considered property, there is the possibility because of the tax base that names might be mentioned. Now, in my grandmother's case, these names are so weird that there is no way that there would be a mistake. For example, my great-grandfather is named after the King of Sweden. And another part of my family, they're known as the Dyke family. They're still down there in that area. And to see the name Gustavus Adolphus Callaway, that was amazing.
Yeah, there's not too many of those around. That's probably pretty unique. Yeah, that's pretty neat. And it is, you ask, what are some of the unique things you found? Not so much on the Callaway line. Diana's researched a lot of other ones, but when you get at a courthouse or looking through records, we found one that was a will from back in the 1700s. And they literally opened up and to sit there and say, hey, this wasn't a will typed up on a typewriter that somebody signed. This was a handwritten will. And to sit there and know that this was one of her grandfathers who had written this down with his own hand, penned the thing, it starts making a connection. Because I don't know about you, I mean, I have a hard time making a connection to somebody I've never met. And so, great grandparents who I never had the chance to meet, or great grandparents, and suddenly see something, either visit a place that they lived or were at, or see something that they touched and did. It suddenly helps me bridge that connection. It's not just a name anymore. That really was a person, and they're connected to me. And that's pretty cool.
It makes it very real.
Yep.
And in my case, I had some pictures. and I still have more pictures. I have no idea who these people are,
Yeah.
but they're on metal plates,
Ah,
and no one wrote the names down, and I have dozens of them. And
wow.
those obviously are very old.
So I wonder, Tarone, though, for you, what jumps out is, so your grandmother was obviously a family history repository. The fact that
Yes.
she had got all that and put it in her head and retained all that's amazing. Fortunately, you've had one of those. You're that one in this generation, I think. But
Right.
where did she get all of her information? Somebody handed it down to her. Do you know where that connection was?
Yeah, it came from different areas. One part was the level of intelligence that she had.
Hmm.
Again, this is a woman that's one generation from slavery.
Wow.
One.
Wow.
So she got them from multiple sources. One was from her parents, but I think the primary was from 2 generations prior to her, 2 people that she didn't know. Her grandmother, and again, the slave owner, John Callaway, obviously shared information regarding the Callaway family.
Yeah.
What was unique about it was when he passed away in 1861, prior to the Emancipation Proclamation, he also wrote a will. And he had 43 slaves, 2 more than Thomas Jefferson at his Virginia location. So he was a man of knowledge, he was a man of affluence, and that information and who he was and who the family was got passed on. But my grandmother, who went to what we call a little house on the prairie schoolhouse, it was a one-room schoolhouse, and she was being taught by her brother-in-law, William Dyke, who became a businessman down there, who was also only 1 generation from slavery. My grandmother was hyper intelligence. She graduated from that one schoolhouse. She was the oldest and got admitted into college as a sophomore.
Wow.
So it's her intelligence and her memory and others sharing, again, what we call slave history, to pass it on, oral history.
That was a blessing. That was really a blessing that you had somebody like that in your family line. Absolutely. Well, guys, I've enjoyed the conversation even more than the video taping. So this was pretty cool. Pretty cool.